Afternoon to our May 11th Planning Commission meeting. We will call roll and go through the consent agenda, but first we'll do roll call.
Commissioner Berry,
Here.
Vice Chair Bubbas,
Here.
Commissioner Bynum,
Here.
Commissioner Cox,
Here.
Commissioner Dillon, Commissioner Finney, Commissioner Hamilton,
Here.
Commissioner Leahy,
Here.
Commissioner Latour, Commissioner May,
Here.
and Commissioner Stebbins. You have a quorum.
Great. Do I hear a motion for the minutes?
Yes, I'd like to move for approval of the March 30th, 2017 minutes.
I'll second.
Great. We have a motion to approve the minutes, and that's been seconded. Those who approve of the minutes, raise your right hand. Those opposed? Okay. It's been signed. Okay, staff, could you go through the consent agenda, please?
Following is a consent agenda, Little Rock Planning Commission, Planning Rezoning Conditional Use Hearing, May 11, 2017. You have 4 items on consent approval. Item B, file number Z9199, Stanley Phillips Duplexes, Conditional Use Permit, northwest corner of West 40th and Gilman Streets. Staff recommends approval of the requested CUP as revised, subject to compliance with the following conditions. Compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in sections 4, 5, and 6 of the agenda staff report. The replat and bill of assurance must include provisions addressing and maintaining the shared parking arrangement, and each parking space must be specifically identified by unit number, either by pavement marking or other signage. And you did receive a letter of support on the revised application from the John Barrow Neighborhood Association. Item number 1, Z7311B, Carver Elementary School Parking Lot Conditional Use Permit, 2100 East 6th Street. Staff recommends approval of the requested CUP, subject to compliance with the following conditions. Compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in sections 4, 5, and 6 of the agenda staff report, and the screening fence between the campus and the homes fronting onto Fletcher Street is to be kept in good condition and is to be repaired or replaced as needed. Item number 3, Z8757A, St. Luke United Methodist Church Daycare Conditional Use Permit, 6401 West 32nd Street. Staff recommends approval of the requested CUP, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in sections 5 and 6 of the agenda staff report. And item number 4, Z9215, Bountiful Blessings Fellowship Church Extension, Conditional Use Permit, 4415 West 29th Street. Staff recommends approval of the requested CUP, subject to compliance with the comments and conditions outlined in sections 5 and 6 of the agenda staff report. That concludes the consent agenda.
Thank you. Do I hear a motion for the consent agenda, please?
Yes, I'd like to make a motion to move for the approval of the consent agenda with all staff recommendations and comments.
Do I hear a second? Thank you. Motion's been made and seconded to approve the consent agenda. Those approved signify by raising your right hand. Those opposed? Consent agenda passes. So that leaves us on regular agenda, the items A, A1, A2, and then 2. Is that correct? Okay. For anyone else, you're welcome to stay, but you may be excused. Okay. Staff, would you start on the item A items, please?
I'll give the presentation on item A. Walter will give the presentation on A1, and then I'll do A2.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, did you want to make a comment on the number of commissioners present?
Okay. As is protocol, for items on the regular agenda, we are an 11-member commission. Your passage of your application requires 6 affirmative votes. And as a courtesy, when we are down to 8 commissioners, where we are now, the applicant has the option to ask for a deferral. So any questions about that? Just thought I'd let you know that you have that option. So let's go.
Okay, item A, file number G 23-465. This is plat and right-of-way abandonments located generally south of Interstate 440, east and north of Springer Boulevard. The property owner is 3M Company, and the applicant is Meg Johnston. 3M Company, who's the property owner and the abutting property owner, requests to abandon parts of the Chamber of Commerce Edition, Granite Park Edition, and Frisbee Edition to include lots and rights-of-way. The general description is as follows. All lots, streets, rights-of-way, and easements in the Chamber of Commerce Edition to the City of Little Rock, Pulaski County, Arkansas. The Granite Park Edition to the City of Little Rock, Pulaski County, Arkansas, not already vacated and lying to the east of the westernmost right-of-way of Alabama Street, except for those alleys, streets, and easements abutting or traversing lots 7 through 10, Block 41, lots 1, 2, 3, 10, 11, and 12 of Block 30, and lots 4, 5, and 6 of Block 25, and those streets abutting lots 6 and 7, Block 24. And that part of Frisbee Edition to the City of Little Rock, Pulaski County, Arkansas, not already vacated except for those alleys, streets, and easements abutting or traversing Blocks 5, 7, and 8, all west, and all of West Line Street. All of the property, plats, and rights-of-way proposed for abandonment is within existing and proposed zoned areas owned by 3M Company, which have been designated for expansion of the existing mining operation and open space buffer areas for a number of years. Paragraph G of the write-up contains all the utility comments. You do have a few of the utility companies who wish to retain various easements within these areas, and that will be made part of the abandonment ordinance that goes to the city board. According to an abstract company, the subject plats contain no reversionary clauses, and abandoning these plats and rights-of-way will have no adverse impact on the public welfare and safety. The Little Rock Fire Department has reviewed and approved the abandonment request. Staff recommends approval of the plat and right-of-way abandonments for the Chamber of Commerce Edition, Granite Park Edition, and Frisbee Edition, subject to easements being retained as noted in paragraph G of the staff report. Now Walter will do A1.
Mr. Chairman and Commissioners, the A1 is a land use plan amendment of land also owned by 3M. There's two proposed amendments. One is to the northwest of West Line and 38th Street, and that would be to change that area to PKOS designation on the land use plan. That's an area that's currently shown as residential low density, and it's an area that at one time had structures on it, but over the years has been cleared, and it's basically becoming wooded area. It's not totally wooded, but it's got some wooded area in it. The other land use plan change is south. It's the area that was just recently annexed by the city. 3M's ownership there, east of Highway 365, and it has been requested to be shown as mining on the land use plan. This is an area that is predominantly mining operations. To the north is zoned mining, and to the west is our industrial uses. This is an area of the county. Primarily, it's outside the city limits. Both to the west, east, and south is all outside of the city limits of the city of Little Rock. Only to the north is inside the city limits of the city of Little Rock. And this area, particularly to the southwest, has been being acquired by several different mining operations, and has been cleared to some extent of homes and businesses in the general vicinity to the southwest. So this is an area around this mining area that's either agricultural or is becoming industrial or mining operations. So we're supportive of both the changes to mining and for the southern area 2, and for open space for the northern area.
Okay, item A2 is the rezoning application, file number Z 9202. The owner is 3M Company. The applicant, again, is Meg Johnston. 3M Company, owner of several hundred acres of property located generally south of Interstate 440 and east and north of Springer Boulevard, is requesting to rezone approximately 30 acres of property from R2 and R3 single-family districts to OS Open Space District, and 69.15 acres from R2, R3, OS to M Mining District. The rezoning is proposed to allow future expansion of the existing stone quarry operation and to provide open space buffer areas between the mining operation and nearby residential areas and Fush Creek. The initial application contained 7 areas proposed for rezoning, as noted in your write-up. The applicant has amended the application to remove Tract 4, which is 1.61 acres that was proposed to go to mining zoning near the intersection of East 38th Street and West Line Street. This is within the eastern area of the overall property. So the applicant is removing that request from the application, so you just have the other 6 areas as proposed. All of the areas proposed for zoning are currently undeveloped. Most of the areas are tree covered. Properties west of the proposed areas of rezoning are occupied by single-family residences, a small park, and undeveloped property. Fush Creek and a railroad right-of-way are located along the north boundary of the overall property. Single-family residences, vacant lots, and undeveloped property are located to the east. Single-family residences, along with a mixture of uses, is located along Springer Boulevard to the south. And the 3M administrative offices and processing plant are located within the southeast portion of the overall property owned by 3M. The city's future land use plan designates the areas proposed for rezoning as park open space and mining. Therefore, the requested OS and M zonings do not require an amendment to the plan. Staff is supportive of the requested rezoning. Staff views the request as reasonable. The area proposed for M zoning has been part of the overall 3M company ownership and plan for expansion of the existing stone quarry operation for a number of years. The 5 areas proposed for open space zoning are located between existing and proposed areas of mining zoning and single-family areas in Fush Creek. The OS zoned areas are proposed to protect the residential areas from noise, dust, etc., generated by the mining operation and to protect the integrity of Fush Creek. Staff feels the proposed M zoning is appropriate. It's an appropriate continuation of the zoning pattern for this area. And staff believes that with the 30 acres of open space zoning, the overall zoning will have a minimal impact on the surrounding areas. Staff recommends approval of the requested OS and M rezoning as revised.
Thank you, staff. Before I ask the applicant to come up, I noticed some people came in last few minutes. If you really want to speak to this issue that they're talking about right now, then you need to submit a green card. I want to be sure you're recognized. If you want to speak and you don't have a card, you won't be recognized. So it's a matter of courtesy. I do want to say that I don't think it'll be an issue, but each side gets 20 minutes. So the applicant, in this case, will have 20 minutes to speak total to the application and issues raised, and then a total of 20 minutes for those who have concerns, questions, or in opposition to that in total. So with that said, no cards to be submitted. Let's have the applicant approach the lectern and state your name and tell us a little bit about this, and if you want to reserve time to hear what the some people have concerns about, then you can wait to hear those and address those later.
Absolutely. Thank you. Hello, board members. My name is Meg Johnston. My firm, Mitchell Williams, represents 3M, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to speak tonight. We're, as you know, the staff described, we're requesting approval of 3 different applications. The ultimate goal being to have it rezoned for mining and open space, consistent with the use that could potentially be used for this property. As of right now, 3M has no plans to have any mining operations in this area. It's just simply it's consistent with the potential use at some time in the future. The total area is about 159 acres. We have talked to the College Station Progressive League about this. They raised concerns, and at their request, we amended the application to remove a mining area that was near the Frisbee addition residence, and we have done that. And we had a community meeting with them on April the 25th, and they discussed these concerns and several others, and we are working with them to address some of those other concerns. All the landowners who are within 200 feet of the rezoned area have been notified. And in conclusion, we request your approval of this and reserve time to come back up later. I also would like to have my colleague, Jordan Johnson, who does communications for 3M, come up and talk to you a little bit more about the work we've done with the community. So, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioners. My name is Jordan Johnson, and I appreciate the opportunity to address y'all. Like Meg said, we had a community meeting with the community, and we are actively working to try to resolve a lot of their questions, concerns, and we actually met with Representative Blake today to begin working through some of those. He's provided us with the names and addresses and phone numbers of a few particular people who had some concerns from our meeting. And it stems from weed lots, it stems from dust, potential noise, those sorts of things, and we're committed to working through those. So if you'd like the specifics, I'd be happy to go through that with you. I'll reserve time later.
That'd be fine.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right. Christopher King.
My name's Christopher King, and I came in here this evening, but first I think I'll have to reserve time to hear some more because I quite don't understand what's going on right now. And at first I thought that they were just gonna, just open it up to mining, but then they're saying that they're not gonna just open up to mining. They made some amendments, and so my question is, what about the people that live over there? If they do open it up to mining and open fields, will those people be rooted out their homes?
Was that, any other questions or concerns? We'll be addressing those. Yes.
And about the extraterritorial zoning, and when back a few years back, we was in here about the extraterritorial zoning, and they said that the reason why they was imposing extraterritorial zoning on us is so that big corporations wouldn't come in and root people out of their home, and so right now that's what they're doing. And
Okay. All right, thank you
and
for your
that's all I
comments.
say. All right.
I appreciate that. Okay. Is it Gloria Dozier?
Good evening, Planning Commission, and also to 3M, our corporate partners. I do want to say I did receive your email on yesterday and that you all had amended something. So therefore, we really do thank you all for that. But I think you remember also in the meeting on April the 25th that there were lots and lots of concerns about the future use, and you all did cover that just a little bit. But I'm still asking the question, if at some point before we leave here, if we could get a clear definition of what you consider future plans. We know that 3M has had many plant managers, and as one leave, new ones come, so we really don't know what to expect.
Ms. Dozier, excuse, you need to address the commission.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Just so the mic will pick you up. That'd be
Okay,
good.
but there are a lot of citizens that are not here today, and they're still not clear, or some things are unanswered. So we're still trying to get some clarity on, the future use. We had some issues back some years ago with the dust issue, and part of the community sued and what have you. And if in this new mining district, will the machine be put there? Will we get reports, although we don't get reports now? But these are some of the type things that the community is asking, and they wanted to, wanted me to come and speak on their behalf as to, what will 3M be doing. So far, they kept their word when they talked about, making this open park, open space. And again, we do thank them for that. But there are some other issues that, with some of the properties adjacent to the proposed buffers and mining areas, as to whether people will continue to have a right to maintain a healthy, safe, sanitary environment. In other words, we were talking about quiet enjoyment of the property. We have a number of senior citizens that live in this area, and they are afraid. Trees have already been planted in some of the neighborhoods, and they are afraid of rats, not roaches, excuse me, rats, rodents, other animals, and what have you, snakes stepping out. So we just need to hear how they plan to correct some of those things, and how soon will they be correcting those things. Thank you.
Thank you for your comments. Terry Gray.
Good afternoon. My name is Terry Gray. I live at 3507 East 38th Street, across the street from this proposed rezoning. And I'm against the rezoning for the simple fact that, they say they're doing things for dust and stuff, but, the top of my house is covered with black aggregate dust from the mine. And so they telling me all the stuff they're doing on their property, but they're not addressing the issues of what's happening off of 3M property. They're not showing responsibility to the community for the dust that gets off. They say they have monitors that they check twice a year. But my issue is, on those windy days when those monitors go off, I ain't never had nobody knock on my door and say, Mr. Gray, we emitted too much dust today. We apologize. Nobody's come try to say, well, we're going to bring a machine and suck this dust up. We emitted too much. They're saying they're doing dust control, but when it's on top of my house and in my yard, all over my vehicles, and they spoke on the trees and things, where the structures were. They left out the part that the reason we don't have those structures is because 3M bought the property and demolished the structures and fenced it up, and it's growing up, which is an issue I will take up with the city of Little Rock since they bought residential lots. That's another issue. You can't say that nothing's there. You're the reason nothing's there. They got lots across the street from my house that I was personally keeping clear. They fenced it up, and now I got weeds this high, on two sides of me. They're saying they're good neighbors. I'm like, you say you're buying this property, but then you're letting it grow up, and you say, well, you fence it up because there are liability issues. Well, clean it up. You bought it, it was cut. Why didn't you keep it up? I don't have a problem with them fencing up the property, but just to fence it up, you wouldn't want that next to you. I would, if I came to your neighborhood and just bought property and say, oh, I'm not going to move there, but I'm going to let it grow up because it's a liability issue, you would all be furious. And I think I deserve the right to be furious. They're saying a lot of nice stuff, and it's real easy when it's somebody else's neighborhood. Like I say, I live across the street. I'm at the bottom of the hill. Come to my house one sunny day, and we'll sit outside and see what that tastes like. Because I can tell you, a lot of crunch in it. But we need to do something, you know, they're saving time. And I know my time is spent when I sit down, so I can't ask the questions of what they're gonna do about the dust, cause he didn't raise an issue, he's gonna come back later. But tell me what you're doing outside of the gated facility. You know, they had the meeting, but they were talking about what they were doing on the inside of 3M. Our issue is what are you doing on the outside of 3M? You know, don't buy lots, just grow them up and say they're buffers. You already had a buffer zone around there. You just moved the buffer zone closer to me, but I don't think that gives you the right to grow up the neighborhood. And I'm against that, you know. And I just hope you take a long look at what they're doing. You know, they say they made changes, and, you know, they told me at that meeting, well, in our foreseeable future, we don't see mining. But this decision is not going to be made in Little Rock. That decision won't be made in Arkansas. That decision will be made at their corporate office, which is not here. Those people don't know what we're dealing with. And so you're saying foreseeable future. Yeah, it might not be in their foreseeable future, but how do we know when the ink gets dry, you approve this, that somebody in Minnesota or wherever the home office is won't say, okay, we got this rezoning, let's move ahead. And they might say, well, oh, they blindsided us, but they don't own the company. You see what I'm saying? So they're saying foreseeable future to us, but they're talking for people that don't live in Arkansas. They're talking about stuff that those people's actions affect my neighborhood, not their neighborhood. And, you know, it's real easy to say, okay, we're going to do this and we're going to do that, and then go home and pray, I don't end up your neighbor. That's not the way this is supposed to work. That's not how good neighbors act. You know, they're telling us they're doing a lot of stuff for Fush Creek. I don't fish in Fush Creek. I don't swim in Fush Creek. So that's a moot point to me. But I do live in College Station. What are you doing? And they say they planted trees. I've seen the trees. I say, well, how does that help with the overgrown lot? Their response was, in 20 years, it'll provide shade and kill the underbrush. I don't want to wait 25 years to see some grass get cut. You know, you're fencing up a lot of lots that we were keeping clean. You know, College Station went through a lot. And then to see what they're doing to College Station hurts me, you know. Let me keep cleaning the lot. I hadn't charged them a penny. I just want the area to look nice. You know, but you're going to fence it up to keep me from cleaning it up, and then you won't take on that responsibility. What kind of neighbor are you? You know, they're going to say a lot of good stuff later. I'm going to sit here and listen to it. But I know what they're doing in the community. And they're saying all this stuff, these notices and stuff. Nobody's ever knocked on my door. The only mailings I get have came from you guys. And that's a sad situation for neighbors. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gregg. Austin Porter Jr., please.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Austin Porter Jr. I'm the president of the Progressive League of College Station, and we had some issues with 3M, and specifically as it relates to track number 4. And track number 4, at one point in time, 3M was proposing to have part of track number 4 zone as mining. And so we talked to the 3M about that. We resolved that issue. And so it's my understanding, based on the current application, that they're going to be having that area proposed as park open space. And so that met our concerns. Of course, we have had other concerns. We've had community meetings with 3M, and we're certainly hopeful in the future that 3M is going to be responsive to the concerns that we raised with them. And I'm sure certainly people have expressed interest or concerns about the future land use planning of 3M. And certainly it's my understanding if 3M wants to change any of the areas, let's say for instance, in track 4 from open space to park to mining, then of course they would have to come back to the Planning Commission, and we would have an opportunity to speak against that particular issue. But The issue that we had as it relates to track 4 that was in the College Station community has been resolved, and we're certainly thankful to 3M for answering those concerns. We have some other issues that we're going to deal with 3M about, and we are looking forward to working with them in the future. Thank you.
Would the applicant like to get back up and speak to some of the issues raised?
Thanks, sir. Mr. Chair, to Mr. Gray and Mr. Porter and Ms. Gloria, they're going to hold us accountable. Mr. Porter is meeting with us. I know Representative Blake is meeting with us too. They're going to help us hold ourselves accountable to working with y'all on figuring out the best way on those weed lots particularly, because that's the first step. That is an issue. We know it's an issue. It is a liability issue because we had to fence it in, but we are committed to doing that, and you're going to see that through. And you got my word, we're going to see it through. We're going to work on some other issues that was raised maybe on dust and that sort of thing, and show them how that we monitor that, and maybe that will help clear up some issues. And we will be attending their local community meetings on a much more frequent basis than we have in the past 4 years. And so thank you for your time.
Oh, sure.
And I just wanted to say, if y'all have any questions, we'll be happy to answer them. So.
Okay. Thank you, commissioners. It's your turn. Questions, comments?
For the
Commissioner Gill?
applicant, one of the things that they were not clear on is the future uses. Can you kind of cover some of that?
None of this area that we are having rezoned or abandoned or any of this has any current operations on it. And they have no plans at any time in, the future that they can think of 50 years from now to do anything. But the zoning that we're asking for is consistent with the land use plan. It's consistent with their ownership, and they are required to be a mine based on what they do. They have south of where we're doing the rezoning, they have their quarry, and they take granite out of it, and they take it to their aggregate plant and convert that into shingle, for shingles. And that's why it has to be zoned mining. So there's no plans to go dig a big hole and start blasting in any of this area. And we were just trying to clean up some of the ownership and zoning around the area. That's really all that this was about, so.
Other commissioners? Commissioner May?
Y'all own a lawnmower?
Yes, sir.
Do you use it?
I will have to defer to my colleagues, but yes, I believe we do.
Let him talk for himself.
Yes, sir, we might, we do, keep up the grounds right around the granule.
What about across the street from where he lives?
No, sir, we've let that go back to a natural state, but
Can you give him a date you'll get it mowed?
we're working with the community and the Progressive League, and we will work out a system to make everyone happy.
I hope you have better luck than I have. I have a $300,000 house across the street from me that I have to call the city real often on to get mowed, and I know how frustrating that is. And it's such a simple thing. It's a big law firm that manages this street. It's not yours, I had to get on you here, but can you give a date when we might get this thing mowed? I think that would be a good neighbor measure to get that done next week, as soon as the rain's over.
Well, what 3M has done with these properties, Commissioner May, is they have fenced them up and there's no entry to them. So we've got to work out a different procedure with the community to
I
figure.
bet a fence company would come put you a gate in there.
We will absolutely be working with the community over we are actually sending out a letter to all the people whose names we received from Representative Blake tomorrow to set up meetings to work with these people. And several of the people who spoke tonight are on that list. So we won't be letting this go.
Don't start fudging here, just.
I'm not fudging.
Give me a date and get his yard mowed.
Until we've
think-
met with them, I don't want to give you a date.
But you will promise publicly that this will be taken care of.
We will meet with them and work on this, yes.
Thank you.
Other commissioners? Commissioner Bubbas.
I have a question for staff, basically related to Mr. May's question. As far as, I was reading this, the proposal here, and it says mining uses will include assurances that these resources be properly managed so as not to create a hazard, nuisance, disfigurement, pollution of the land. The applicant is requesting to amend this to mining. So mining uses will include those assurances. And my question is according to he has stated and some of the other people here, they have concerns that that's not being done now. So therefore, if it's not being done now, how can they have some assurances that'll be done in the future? So it sounds like an enforcement issue to me. Am I correct in that assumption that if they have an issue, just like Mr. May alluded to, that they can call the city and then the city can enforce that not be a problem?
Commissioner, but yeah, that's correct. Like most of our enforcement's comes from complaints, and then we follow up. And I don't know if we've received any complaints from that area regarding 3M and their operations. But if there's an issue, we'll go out and investigate like we do any other complaint.
And go ahead, Mr. May.
Commissioner May?
Call for, code enforcement, tell them your problem. And next week, if it's not done, call them again.
Staff, I do have a question that raises the weed lots outside the city limits. Does enforcement have jurisdiction?
No premise.
If I may,
Yes, sir. Come to the lectern, please.
I'm sorry, Meg. The land that you're talking about, that's on 39th.
38th.
That land, 39th, is north of that, is my understanding, is now included in the city limit. Is that correct?
The rezoned area is now including on the city limit, but 38th down is not in the city.
Right, but 39th is the area that we're talking about, where across the street from Mr. Gray's house. That area is in the city, and so the city does have code enforcement can make 3M keep it cut. And so that is the concern that we have. We have people who live in the community who are certainly concerned about areas being allowed to grow up and weed, and it creates rodents. Creates other hazards, snakes, and certainly people are concerned about that. And so it's a legitimate concern. Mr. Mayor, thank you for your question. That's a good one about the lawnmower. Yeah, so we're going to make sure they lawnmower. Thank you.
That's a good question.
39th is not in the city.
No.
38th Street is the city limits, and then kind of follows that OS area.
Yeah, that's why I meant 38.
Right, and that's, a lot of College
It's on the other
Station
side.
is outside the city limits, but we have extended zoning to that area, to that part of College Station.
Okay, so what we are voting on tonight, the city can enforce code in that area.
This 3M's property is in the city limits.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, answers that question. Thank you. Any other commissioners? Before we vote, two things. One, of course, is as bylaws say, you need 6 affirmative votes, but we're down to 8 commissioners. You have the option to ask for deferral. I will say, before we have a motion, I hear a lot of expressions of need for accountability from 3M in that area, and I certainly hope you honor those requests.
Absolutely. Can you give me just a moment to confer with my client? And
Oh,
confer-
sure. Okay, you bet. Yes, we will have to do 3 separate motions. 3? Yes. A2.
We do not want to defer, so thank you.
Yes. Okay. So these amendments will require 3 separate motions, A1, A2. So our motion maker needs to keep that in mind.
I'm the motion maker, right? Here we go. I'd like to move for approval of item A with all staff recommendations and comments.
I'll second.
Okay, you heard a motion to approve item A. And it has been seconded. Those that approve, raise your right hand. Those who do not approve? Okay, that motion passes with 8. A1.
I'd like to move for the approval of item A1 with all staff recommendations and comments.
You heard a motion and it's been seconded to approve item A1 Those will approve that motion, raise your right hand. Those who do not approve, raise your right hand. Item A1 passes 8.
I move for the approval of item A2 with all staff recommendations and, need a comment from staff?
Including the amendment to remove track 4, as proposed for mining.
Move for the approval of item A2 with all staff recommendations and comments, including removal of track 4 from the application.
I'll second.
Thank you. We heard the motion. It's been seconded for item A2. Those approve of the motion, raise your right hand. Those who do not approve, raise your right hand. That item passes 8-0. Okay. Okay. Thank you all, one and all, for bearing with us. That's a very complicated issue, and we will move on to item 2 when staff is ready.
Thank you.
Okay. Would you like to proceed with item 2, please?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Item 2, file number Z8629-C. It's 102 South Rodney Parham. Mini warehouse revised conditional use permit located at 102 South Rodney Parham. This is a property that the commission saw in August of last year. It's a C3 zone, 1.8 acre site. On August 25th, the commission approved a conditional use permit to allow for construction of a 3-story conditioned mini warehouse facility on the site. The facility was to contain approximately 750 units of mini warehouse space. The commission's approval was appealed to the board of directors, and on November 15th of last year, the board upheld the commission's action in approving the conditional use permit. I won't read through all the specifics of the prior application. This application is in many ways very similar to the application that you saw last year. There are a few differences, but fairly minor in the grand scheme of things. The proposed new building is also 3 stories in height. It is enclosed mini warehouse with no direct access to the outside. That's the same as the previous application. The differences primarily in this application and the one that you saw last year have to do with the placement of the building, the expansion of the building. As you look at the plan that's before you, you'll see to the south the building is proposed to have a setback of 25 feet. The previous application had a setback of 65 feet. On the east side, this building has a setback of 25 feet. Previous application had a setback of 53 feet. The previous application, the way the facility functioned is you entered off of Rodney Parham and actually drove into the building. There was a 30-foot wide access drive that went through the middle of the building and exited directly out to the south. You parked within the interior of the building, and then you had access through elevators and stairs to the 3 stories of mini warehouse units. This application doesn't function like that. It does have on the east side of the building, just kind of north of the L there, it will have a Sallyport type facility where you can have access for 2 vehicles to actually back into the building at a time, where they would then have access to their interior units. The facility itself, the building design, is very similar to what you saw last time. The building is to be constructed of architectural brick and block masonry, ephes, and decorative metal. This building will have an earth tone finish, as the previous one did. There'll be no windows on the south side or on the east side nearest the neighborhood. The hours of access are very similar to the previous application. Again, there will be no outside storage of boats, RVs, trailers, watercraft, or automobiles. No businesses will be permitted to operate in the units, and no explosive, flammable, or inherently dangerous materials can be kept there. There are 3 variances associated with this. I understand one of those may go away, but there were 3 that were filed with the application. They were the same 3 variances that were approved under the previous application. The first is to allow a reduction in the street buffer on Rodney Parham to 15 feet. That's caused to some extent by the requirement to dedicate right-of-way. The second variance was to allow an increase in building height above the 35-foot limit to 37. The previous application had 36. And then the third variance is to allow grading within the northern 15 feet of the southern land use buffer. It's required typically that no more than 30% of the buffer be disturbed. This would slightly exceed that. In all honesty, it's a fairly moot issue because all that southern area is the previously paved parking lot for the old Mexico Chiquita restaurant that used to sit there. Staff doesn't have an issue really with the variances. The issues have to do primarily with a couple of things. One having to do with the massing of the building being changed and moved to the south, closer to the neighborhood. The question about really how the facility is going to function. The previous one, you had really no outdoor activity. All the activity took place within the interior of the building. This facility, in staff's opinion, appears to have more outside activity simply because of the limited number of indoor spaces where you can park your truck or car or trailer to do the unloading. Additionally, under the previous application, in response to what we were hearing from the neighborhood, all access to Sunnymead was eliminated. There was a fire access gate going to be placed across Sunnymead, and all the facility traffic was to enter and exit directly from Rodney Parham. This application proposes to have an exit onto Sunnymead, with the driveway being redesigned to urge the traffic to turn north towards Rodney Parham rather than south through the neighborhood. As staff looked at this revised application, we were cognizant of the issues that were raised by the neighbors last time around. And as we approached it, our concerns were to try to be responsive to those issues that were raised by the neighbors last time around. I have to be honest with you. I have not had a single phone call. We've not received any contact, and I don't know, that's very different than the last time around where the neighbors were very vocal about their concerns. That doesn't seem to be the case this time. Staff, though, because of the changes and wanting to be sensitive to the needs and possible impact on the neighborhood, staff is not able to support the application as filed. And one other thing, the dumpster location, you'll notice, is right at the kind of southeast northeast corner of where the building and the driveway is located. The previous application had the dumpster on the north side of that driveway. This application does bring the dumpster closer to the neighborhood. So the massing of the structure, the dumpster location, concern about parking being primarily outside the building, and then the Sunny Meat access, those issues cause staff to not be supportive of this application.
Okay, thank you, staff. Applicant, please approach the lectern and address your application and the issues raised by staff.
Yes, sir. My name is Bear Davidson. I'm with Marler Engineering, and I'm here on behalf of Storage Space, who has submitted this request for conditional use. First of all, we would like to speak today and get feedback from the commission, but we would ask, would you clarify, are we still able to ask for a deferral at the end of this time period? If we
Yes,
feel the need?
you are. It would be good to go if you want to do it now or later after we've gone through the discussion.
We would like to get some feedback today, so we'd like to discuss it.
Okay.
Yes. First, I would like to address Mr. Carney's comments and also the staff's recommendation not to approve this conditional use. When the conditional use was granted last year in 2016, that was by a different party. And since that time, Storage Space has acquired the property and was prepared to construct the plans as designed and approved in the conditional use. But in light of some of the negative comments from the neighbors and looking more into that, Storage Space decided to revise the site plan and, in our opinion, to improve it for the sake of the neighborhood and ask for a conditional use for this revised site plan. So that's why we're here today. We feel the new site plan is an improvement to the previous approved conditional use. Also, Mr. Carney mentioned that there had been no comments from the neighborhood about this conditional use, and we actually have had substantial discussions with the neighborhood, but all those have been based on Mr. Michael Hall with Storage Space being proactive and reaching out to the neighbors that had negative comments for last year's submittal. So our conversations with them were not in response to negative comments with this one, but instead with trying to address some of the issues they had on last year's submittal. I would like to speak a little bit about the changes that have been made and offer our reasoning for why we feel that those are improvements. As Mr. Carney said, the previous submittal had a 30-foot access drive that went through the middle of the building, and this submittal does not have that same feature. The reason being that access drive ran north to south. I believe we have a drawing. And so the exit for that access drive was on the south side of our property, and some of the comments with last year's submittal were that headlights would be, shining in neighbors' yards when people were pulling through this late in the evening while we're still in operation. Also, that layout, required vehicles at the south of this building, furthest from Rodney Parham. The new layout doesn't allow for vehicle access to the south of the building. That area is actually fenced off and a green space with tree plantings. Also, there were no security measures that would have kept pedestrians from entering the south side of that building away from visibility on Rodney Parham late in the evening, whereas now the only access is through the bay that Mr. Carney mentioned. Now, one of the concerns of the staff was the limited parking on the exterior, and based on studies of inside storage, a facility of this size would see 13 to 15 vehicles per day, and typically not more than 2 to 3 at a time. And so the reason for this parking up front is just that we had the space for it. This bay, which is new to self-storage, the bay that's proposed, allows for users to unload and load their vehicles inside the building without being parked outside of the building. So this is an adjustment made from that center lane that was shown on last year's submittal. Another discussion was the massing of the building, and part of that is the height of the building and the closeness to that rear setback. The variance that we would like to amend our request for is the height variance. We have revised our architectural drawings so that now we're within the height requirements for this zone. So, and I would like Mr. Michael Hall to summarize some of the discussions he's had with the neighborhood, if that's all right with.
Mr. Hall, please state your name.
Sure. My name is Michael Hall.
Okay.
With Storage Space. Before we made our original submittal, we reached out to the property owners of record who had spoke in against this development. We met with Ms. Crane, who lives in the back. She represents the Property Owners Association. We went over the fact that we were really concerned about the back of the property. We felt like people could slip in through that door. After conversations with her, it seems to be common that people coming from the Kroger tend to come behind there and jump over the wall into the neighbor's backyard. In the southeast corner of that property is a drainage flume that runs down through there, and they tend to jump the wall into the drainage deal, and then they can make their way to the freeway. Ms. Crane has had a couple criminals apprehended in her backyard because of that. This new design is we're going to take a 10-foot ornamental fence from the corner of the building on the southwest side to the wall. Our goal is to eliminate all pedestrian traffic and auto traffic in the back to eliminate that. The building also provides noise and ambient light screening from the shopping center and the intersection of Markham and Rodney Parham. The other excuse me. The other neighbor that spoke in opposition was Miss Rose Bradley, and she lives there on the eastern property line to Sunnymead on the southeastern corner. She's the longest resident in the neighborhood. After visiting with her, we had originally asked for a large shade trees in the back. She asked if we would use a more column-style evergreen. We told her we'd be happy to do anything we could to the extent that the landscape zoning would allow, and she asked if we could try to lower the building, and so we actually went back and had them refigure that, and that's why we're able to remove that variance. Regarding the access out of Sunnymead, Ms. Crane made it clear that from the very beginning they were not opposed to exit to Sunnymead. They wanted to make sure there was no entrance to Sunnymead. They did not oppose to it, as long as we put a slight bend in it to force the traffic to take a left-hand turn back to Rodney Parham. What our design did is after it comes out of the gate, it narrows down to a one-way width, and it swings to the south, and then before making a slight turn back north to create that slight bend. We assured them they did not want any signage on Sunnymead for the facility. I assured them that we have no need for it. It's a secondary exit only in the event that somebody's operating some kind of vehicle and it's difficult for them to come back out the front. It's not intended as the primary exit. The dumpster where we had it positioned, we felt like it was the easiest place to put it so that the truck could enter off of Rodney Parham, get the trash, and then exit back out through the front. These trucks tend to come by early in the morning, 5 or 6 o'clock. The resident on the corner, Mr. Lamb, I made 6 trips to his house, left 2 personal notes, and we did the certified letter. No contact whatsoever. My understanding is that he doesn't live in the house. He uses it for an office. The front door is a glass window, and if you look in, he's got desks and filing cabinets and stuff, and he's never there. I believe that covers that. And if we need to, we can move the dumpster back to its original approved location. Though we like this one better, we think it works better, but it's not a deal breaker for us.
Ruth Bell?
I'm always amazed that people say they've talked to everybody and they never call the League of Women Voters. I'm Ruth Bell with the League of Women Voters, and I bled and died big time on this application which you approved last August, 9 months ago. I bled and died because I was supporting it. The League was in favor of it because it seemed like the ideal way to handle mini warehouse problems, to make it totally internal. And the neighborhood was ready to scalp me, especially as I only live about 8 blocks away. And I wasn't on their side. So here again, apparently I'm not on their side. The issues I have real problems with. One is access onto Sunnymead, because if the applicant is really serious about wanting to get that traffic to head back to Rodney Parham rather than doing the big cut through the neighborhood, they could do it very well by getting a left turn only for that exit, so that they would have, people exiting would be told firmly to make that left turn and go back to Rodney Parham. That I would see as a great indicator of genuine desire to keep the traffic out of the much put upon neighborhood. The other big issue I have is with this two-vehicle bay to load and unload in, because it seems to me that works fine if people were totally logical and went 2 by 2 like Noah's Ark. But my husband spent many years in retail sales, and he would come home and tell me about how nobody came for hours and hours to his business. And then they were all there, and he'd already sent half the staff home, and there was no logic to it. And I think that's kind of the way it is with many warehouses, too, because I can recall times, it seems to me it's seasonal, and it plays a lot on when college is out or when college is beginning, because it seems to me we would have a college-age daughter come home with her mini trailer, and we had to immediately rush down to my husband's mini warehouse slot and unload it at 10 o'clock or night or midnight, because they had to turn in the mini device they'd rented to move their college stuff home, and they didn't want to pay another day. They had to get it unloaded. So the combination of the fact that I would think at the end of the month or the middle of the month, when people might be moving out of one residence and into another, or moving to a smaller residence and storing stuff, or coming home from college or going off to their first new job, they would have lots of people, and they'd be parking in the extra parking places that are outside the building. They'd be talking, they'd be slamming doors, they'd be opening their mini trailer doors and slamming those. And generally speaking, doing all that between 6 a.m. and 10 p.m., which is sometimes okay, but sometimes it's not conducive to peace and quiet and the enjoyment of your property. Those are my and the League's two primary concerns. The fact that Sunnymead is not totally protected from cut-throughs, and that there's the real possibility of numbers of people exceeding the capabilities of that two-vehicle loading dock. For those two reasons, I hope you will reject this application. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Bell. For the record, I want everyone to know that I got all my belongings for 6 years of higher learning in my 1973 Toyota Corolla. The biggest items of which were my 2 Advent speakers and my stereo equipment. Before you get to commissioner feedback and questions, did you want to come up and respond to Ms. Bell's concerns?
Yes, sir. I would like to say that I agree 100% with Ms. Berry on the sound, the noise and stuff, and that was the whole reason we redesigned the building, to take the vehicles and the traffic out of the back. Can you bring up our submitted site plan? What we did on that entrance onto Sunnymead, if you'll look to the, I guess that would be the far east where it enters onto Sunnymead on the south side. We've put a curb in there, and we assured Mrs. Crane and the other neighbors that we would put up appropriate no right-hand turn signs, painting and striping on the drive. If they would allow us, we would probably even put a ballard or two on the right side of the curb to prevent that. So we presented this design back to Ms. Crane and Ms. Bradley before we submitted it, and they were okay with. They felt like that was enough to create the left-hand turn in their opinion.
Commissioners.
Sorry, if I could, if you could bring up I have some pictures of what a typical bay like this looks like to illustrate what we're
that'd be
talking
good.
about. Yes, sir. This is a typical outside. They're non-intrusive. They're glass doors to keep light in, and so that people feel safe that they're not closed in. If you'll go to the next one, this is typically what an interior bay looks like. In this particular case, it'll be probably about a 22-foot tall ceiling. That's another example. These are actual storage facilities in Illinois, Missouri, Florida, and so forth. This is a common design coming up in self-storage. This is a newer design. But I wanted to show you those so you get a true understanding of what kind of space we're talking about. This space is typically 40 by 40.
Okay, thanks. Commissioners.
I have a
Commissioner Dillon.
question for staff. How many units was it before? I can't remember.
750.
So
plus
it's
or
still
minus.
in the same number?
Same number of units.
Okay.
Okay. Commissioner Bubba's.
I am, how can I say this? A little perplexed by this application because I don't know how can I do this right. I've been trying to figure out how to say this, but if traffic and activity, outside activity, is a factor, then we need to support this application wholeheartedly. I talked to a gentleman in a local restaurant, and they did $30,000 in sales on May 5th. And that's about 1,500 people. 1,500. What'd you say, 13? Multiply that by 10. Let's say he's off tenfold. It's 130. If we're talking about outside activity, traffic, making that illegal turn, this is going to have, if that's a factor, we need to vote for this thing. Because the amount of activity, traffic, people coming through the lot with a restaurant on there, it's just going to be so much more traffic and so much more noise and lights and everything else in the world. Parking is almost, it's abutting. My only suggestion and my only recommendation that I have for you is where, and maybe I need to ask staff first, where was the previous dumpster location? I see it now over here. I was wondering if there was any way that if you wanted to get it any closer to that lady's backyard, you could probably just put it in her backyard.
That's Mr. Lamb. He's the one who I don't believe lives in the property. But as I stated before, we're happy to move it back to the previously approved spot, which is directly to the north. Yeah, right there.
I just know that I think we have a lot of people that really like a loud banging. If someone woke my 2-year-old up at 5 in the morning, him screaming any earlier than he already screams, I would not be a happy camper with that dumpster getting banged around in my backyard, which, I mean, that is almost right there at the corner. I would almost, I can't do it, can I? But, you know, that would be my only concern is the noise from that dumpster banging. Everything else, I'm excited about. If there's a way that y'all can mitigate the noise for that neighbor. And he may not be complaining right now because he's renting that property, but I think in the long run, it would be a better idea to try to mitigate that noise factor from that dumpster. Other than that, I'm all for it. Looks like you've met with the community, and that's why they're not here tonight, because you've met with them and you've tried to make them happy, and we appreciate that.
Thank you, Commissioner Bubbas. And any other commissioners, questions, feedback? Commissioner May?
That alone doesn't bother me. I live probably, as a crow flies, half a mile from there. I hear Kroger's dumpster every morning about 4 o'clock, and it's just right behind there. That's not my problem. How many bays do you have? Just 2? 4?
Talking about for the loading and
For the
unloading?
loading and unloading.
Yes, sir. There's 2 overhead doors. You can fit 4 cars in there, though, 2 and 2. But
What are you gonna do with when school's out, like Ms. Bell and I, and you have 6 or 8 there at the same time, and you know how that works? What's the backup plan for that?
Well, they can always enter through a sidewalk door and park in the parallel parking that we have available to access their units. Most tenants who are already moved in will probably
Is
park
there
up
no
front and walk in.
access at all on the east side? Am I reading that right?
The east side that backs up to
Backs up to Sunnymead on that side?
No, sir. No, sir. There are no windows and no doors of any kind on any part of this building that butts up
So
to the
everything
resident.
is over here on the northwest and west side. That's where all the parking is, right?
Yes, sir.
Are
Right
these
there
all
where the
parking?
cursor is, right there. Yeah, we've lined parallel parking up on both sides. And I will, when you asked about school being out, school is not actually the most busiest time. Normally it's if a tornado's come through. But typically, in my experience over 20 years, and we've had facilities of this size, I can't think of 5 times in all this time that there's been more than 5 cars on the facility at one time. It's just the nature of the business. It's very low impact.
I'm with Mr. Bubbas on this. I don't like either plan, quite frankly. I don't. But what they may get, what they could get is a bar that stays open to 3 o'clock in the morning. I mean, this is commercial property. And I think like some of these apartments that we have trouble with out on Bowman Road, you're going to get a lot worse than this, because this is going to get developed somehow.
Thank you, Commissioner May. Commissioner Leahy?
I understand that they've adjusted the height, and then they're requiring a variance on the height now. Is that correct?
Commissioner Leahy, I've heard the applicant, they have eliminated that variance request, so the building will comply with the 35 feet. I've also heard them say that they will move the dumpster to the north side of the driveway where the previous plan had the dumpster.
That's okay with me then. I'm used to that, getting woke up in the middle of the night. I don't know where it's people coming in from a late night activities at 2 o'clock in the morning or getting up to go to early morning activities at 4 o'clock. But there's quite a bit of that in my neighborhood, and I'm going to support this application myself.
Before we get a motion, I do want staff, any response? I think what we've heard, the applicant is amending their application for moving the dumpster to the previous position that had been on the previous site plan. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct.
And I did also hear him suggest, but I didn't know if it were really allowed as an amendment, if he put a ballard on the new access on Sunnymead to prevent right turn. Vince is coming up, and he might have a comment about that.
Mr. Floriani correctly notes, they, of course, cannot put any kind of ballards in the public right-of-way, but on their property as the driveway approaches Sunnymead, they can make curbing and signage and ballards to direct traffic to make a left turn.
And so that's part of your amendment.
Absolutely. We assured the neighbors that we were going to make it to where they have no choice but a left turn. Anything going right is going to cause a problem to their vehicle.
Okay, okay. Anything else, staff, before, the applicant, you mentioned, you have the option to defer if you wish. You'll need 6 affirmative votes.
We would not like to defer at this time.
Okay,
We'd like to go to a vote if possible.
good, we will proceed.
I move for approval of item 2 with all staff recommendations and comments, except that of denial, and including the amendments stated.
Okay, you heard a motion and it's been seconded. Those approve of the motion signify by raising your right hand. And those opposed? That's what I get for voting with staff. So motion passes 7-1. You bet. Citizen communication. Anyone want to speak? Otherwise, we now stand adjourned.